Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are in studio today with Sebastien, not Sebastian, Sebastien Nore from Chateau Minuti in the Saint-Tropez area of Provence. Introductions in just a second. But I'm looking into the monitor, and I've been on a diet. Huh?
Yeah.
I'm looking good.
You look
You
good.
think?
But you are drinking a lot of rosé.
Lots of rosé,
Yeah.
because dry rosé.
Because rosé, they are very dry and they are
Yeah.
very low in sugar. Nearly
know,
no sugar.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'll have to talk about
Yeah.
that in a second. Hey, Wine Talks available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you hang out with your podcasts, and sponsored by the Original Wine of the Month Club. You've got a great show. If you haven't heard the show with Stephen Spurrier, the late Stephen Spurrier, the architect of the Judgment of Paris in 1976, it's a great show. Find it at winetalkspodcast.com or at your favorite hangout, and check this thing out, because he didn't last much longer after the show, and really helped us understand more and more about that faithful day. And I hate to bring that up in front of Sebastien, because the Americans beat the French in their own tasting in 1976, and so that was anyway. Welcome to the show. Glad you're here. I appreciate the fact you came here right off of the plane.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your tour this holiday? What are you doing? Not holiday. What are you doing this working tour? Are you going to hit more than one state?
I will stay 3 days in LA,
That's it?
visiting some key customers, and also our distributing partner RNDC here with our importer Vintus. And then I will fly to San Francisco to meet the same thing, same trip. Visiting, we are at Minuti. We like to see our customer, to meet them, and we are very happy to be able to fly again. I've never been here for 4 years now, so
wow, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to be back.
I have a good friend that owns a winery in Saint-Tropez, or near Saint-Tropez, Valois. Monsieur Joachim Splichal, Domaine Kala, and he was talking about the restrictions during COVID were rather strict. Restrictions were strict.
Yeah.
Particularly, I guess, when it came to picking the grapes, even he can only send so many people out on the farm.
It was not so easy because we at Minuti we harvest by hand 100% of our estate, and it was not so easy to get the team and to isolate the people being positive from the rest of the group. So it was it was a tough period.
Wow.
But at the same time, the pandemic benefited to rosé. Because it's a pleasure wine, it's a nice wine, and if you remember, in France and in Europe, during the first lockdown in March 2020, the weather was very good, so people, they were in their home, doing nothing or nearly nothing, but they need to have a time of pleasure, and they choose rosé for that, and the sales of rosé were booming at this time.
Yeah, we had. I will say, the wine during COVID, during the pandemic and the confinement, it was good for us. People. We enjoy that. I want to talk about you for a little bit. You've seemed to have worked in many sectors of our industry, being alcoholic beverages. You've been with beer, with Kronenbourg, and you're with in Bordeaux. I want to talk about that. So, how did that happen? Why did you get interested in our beverages? Let's say it that way.
It's a bit by chance. I started in the beer sector, and then from proposal to proposal, I came to the wine, and I'm very happy because wine is pleasure. Wine, you consume wine with friends, and especially rosé. And I will never come back to beer or soft drinks, because the occasion of consumption is very different. It's not wine is not linked to thirst. It's linked to sharing something, sharing good times, good emotion with friends. So that's the reason why I'm very happy to be in this.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we're going to talk about Bordeaux too, since you're with Baron de Rothschild.
Yeah.
But I say this all the time to my friends, and I say it to other guests on the show, and that is, there is something dramatically different about wine and any other beverage that's alcoholic, because, let's say with Kronenbourg, the brewmaster's job is to make it taste the same as before.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah.
If I drink Kronenbourg, it's
To be
because I like
To be
Kronenbourg.
consistent, yeah.
Right.
From,
But we don't get to do that in the wine business.
But we try with Minuti. We try to do. There is less effect on the vintage compared to Bordeaux. Yes, in Bordeaux, you're right, or Burgundy. You need to do with the mother nature and the weather, the climate, the temperature. It's a bit less the case in Provence.
Yes.
Hopefully, we have less weather issue, and the quality and the style remains a bit the same from vintage to another.
So that was you already started. You're doing it great. You already got into the stuff that I wanted to talk about, which is an interesting concept for rosé, because it clearly these wines that we have here, the Chateau Minuti wines, and we have the entry level M all the way to the 281. I guess it's the estate or the premium brand, but how much effect? I mean, I clearly taste the effect of terroir here.
Yeah.
And the terroir meaning the soil, the weather, the grape, the winemaker's history. There's a huge difference between the four wines, even though they're all pink and they're all sort of a nice hue of salmon, but they're different. And so doesn't terroir play an important role in the wines of Minuti?
Yeah, of course. But first, the blending play the first role. Then the number of press, or even so you have one press for M and Prestige, and you have no press for Roséor and 281, and you can feel the difference. We don't do press to have just the expression of the fruit, of the varietal, of the Grenache in the two estate one, the Roséor and 281. And if you want to have a bit more structure, you do one press for the Prestige. So yes, terroir can have an effect, but even more all the wine making process will make the difference in taste.
It was fascinating to taste the 281. The complexity to find complexity in rosé is very. It's not rare, but it's interesting to find.
Yeah.
And then tasting them side by side, you understand now there's complexity differences and structural difference. Do you think, does the consumer know that?
Oh, I'm sure, because in the case of 281, the complexity is linked to the uniqueness of the Grenache. That is our own Grenache coming from very old vines. So we graft old vines to keep the essence of this Grenache, and we have done massal selection with our gardener to be able to clone the type of Grenache. And yes, people when they test 281, they appreciate the complexity, the minerality of the wine, and they can feel and test the difference with the other wine. Roséor being a bit more floral, very fine and elegant. Prestige being more mineral, more structured, and the M being rounder. I can't say sweet because I was telling you it's not sweet. Clearly, it's dry rosé, but the M is rounder.
We're going to come back to all this in a minute, but I don't want. Before we get off the subject, I want to talk about the Rothschilds, the Philippe Baron de Rothschild. You were there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And was that your first wine stint? The first job you had in the wine business?
Not yeah. I was first in the distributing company in France.
Oh, I see.
Where I met the family first, because the Rothschild family was distributing in France Minuti. Now this distributing company has been bought by Campari, and Minuti is still distributed by Campari in France. So my first contact with the family was when I was working in France at the head of the on-trade for Rothschild, and I was selling Rothschild wines, but also Minuti, but also Torres wine, Conchai Toro wines. So lots of wine different from France and outside France.
So we hope that everybody understands the difference between Bordeaux and Rosé, and the districts are radically different, though they're not that far apart. But tell me about the business of Bordeaux versus the business of Rosé.
It's yes.
Is it similar?
No, it's very different. The business of Rosé is linked to a very social moment. it's not. It's rosé. We are pleasure wine, easy to drink, easy to understand. It's not so complicated. We didn't oak. We don't oak. Sorry, our rosé. We have some competitor to do that, but so it's rosé. It's pleasure wine. It's party wine by the pool with friends. You don't drink rosé alone. I will say that Bordeaux, it's more expert wine. It's more a time when you test more complex wine, aged in barrel, different type of barrel, and so on. So it's not the same ambiance. It's not you drink. You can drink rosé alone without food. It's a bit more difficult with Bordeaux. Bordeaux, it's the dinner or the lunch time, and you try to pair your Bordeaux with your food. So it's more, I would say it's more an expert wine, and rosé is easier, which make also I think the success of rosé today, because you can pair with lots of food.
So if you're export manager, right, and director of global strategies. And so the strategies have to be considerably different to market rosé around the world than it is to a classified growth. I mean, it must be completely different conversation.
Of course, because I will say that the main competitor for rosé are not wine or other rosé wine. It's cocktails, spirit, and even more champagne. We are called in Europe the champagne of the day. Because our occasion to consume rosé is from 11 to 11, alone, like an aperitif, or with food, or you can also have more and more demand to use our rosé in cocktails. It's I would say rosé is a lifestyle alcoholic beverage now, more than just a wine.
That's true.
It's a wine, of course, a serious and tasty wine, but it's not only that.
I think that's true. The West Coast has been slow. The West Coast of America has been slow to pick up rosé and its ambiance and its lifestyle that goes around it. I think part of that was because we were, always thinking if it was pink, it was white Zinfandel, which made it sweet.
Probably,
right?
Yeah.
Mr.
Too sweet, too dark, and too structured.
Right, Mr. Trinquero in 1974. Let's give the listeners the lay of the land when it comes to Provence. Provence is the south. What's that? The southeast, I guess, part of France.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
And there's, and you said the Côte de Provence, which is the larger appellation. Inside the appellation, there are smaller regions.
Inside. So Côte de Provence is 70% of all Provence. Then you have Coteaux d'Aix, Coteaux Varois, Cassis, which is a small town near Marseille, and a very, very small appellation called Belley near Nice. But the main one and the more qualitative one is Côte de Provence.
Côte de Provence.
And what I can say that visiting US, I'm a bit frustrated sometimes because as you are very far from Provence, you don't know this, I will say, these details. And you have lots of wine called Provence, but being just part of Provence, like right. IGP.
IGP.
Which is not Côte de Provence at all. It's a sourcing coming from south of France, even south west of France, and they are using the code of Provence, but they are not from Provence. So I would say, be careful. Always, if you want a very qualitative Provence wine, I will say I will advise to choose Côte de Provence and to check that this wording is really on the bottle. And
Côte de Provence,
not only Provence.
Not
Côte
just
de
Provence.
Provence. It's very important.
So is that a French, en règle de France? Is it not protected to have Côte de Provence or Provence?
Yes, it's AOP, Côte de Provence. But you can say my wine is coming from Provence. Which is
that's interesting,
but not the same, not the best appellation.
Not IGP, Mediterranean.
Yeah,
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay,
which
that's
are
interesting. I did not know
less
that.
qualitative.
I know that the Côte de Provence, but to be able to say Provence, and you do hear it all the time.
Provence is not appellation; it's a region.
No, it's just a region.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, all right, good. Thank you for that. Well, Saint-Tropez. Let's talk about Saint-Tropez, because I think most people, if you say Saint-Tropez, it's about the movies and Brigitte Bardot, and they're on the grass,
Yeah.
they're on the
and
sand.
also Minuti, because
Yeah.
we are the only wine, the first growth of Provence coming from Saint-Tropez, from the peninsula.
So that was a question. Well, first of all, I had the same vision. You say Saint-Tropez, and we've been there a couple times, and you just think of the French Riviera. Is that not the most southern part of what's considered the French Riviera, or does the French Riviera sort of go further south than the peninsula of Saint-Tropez?
This is the
At the beginning.
southern. This is the southern.
It's part of
Yeah.
a little harbor or a bay.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
okay. Well, I was told by Kevin O'Leary, the famed investment banker on TV show Shark Tanks, that one of the things that became famous about rosé back in the day was that Brigitte Bardot at a brasserie or bistro had put ice in her rosé, and it became this famous scene or this famous episode in her life, and that everybody started drinking rosé because of that. Just a comment. I found the picture though.
I will say, yeah, probably it was the beginning. I think that the big trend of rosé started a bit later.
Yes.
In the beginning of 2000, and yes, as we are a pleasure wine, we don't refuse to have ice in our wine. We even do it usually. Because what is very important is to have it fresh, and when it's very very warm outside, we prefer to add some ice cube in our rosé, because we will be able to drink it at the good temperature, and probably also quicker.
I'm gonna take that as authority. You're giving me permission to put ice in my rosé.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise I would have never done it. And in fact, when I'm at home,
it's rosé piscine.
If I'm at home and somebody asks for rosé, I will actually put it in my martini shaker with the ice, and I'll get it nice and cold, and I'll strain the ice out so I don't look like I'm putting ice in the wine. So now it's okay. Sebastien told me it's all right.
You can do it.
Okay,
No
thank you. It's interesting to me because I taste wines every Tuesday here. Tomorrow I have about, I don't know, not too busy tomorrow, about 10 appointments. And they're going to bring me wines, and they're going to bring me rosés, and they're going to bring me them from all over the world. And I like to look at what I do every Tuesday in the last 32 years as sort of a temperature of what's going on in the wine business, and what's popular, what are people trying to move. And I'm starting to see rosés from all over the world, where you never would see them before. I mean, all the islands, Sardinia, Corsica, they've always had rosés, Provence, of course. But Tuscany, Croatia, I mean, what I would consider off the beaten path, not places you normally saw rosé come from. Have they always been making rosés in these locations, or because of the trend now that people are liking rosé and drinking it more, are we seeing these from other parts of the world?
I think it's the reason, the main reason, because of the trend, because the consumer is asking for rosé, and hopefully it seems that Provence is not easy to follow and to copy. And what I've seen from other region, you can copy the color, but the taste is very different. It's more structured. So I think that we are still the best appellation for a long time. But I think that it's a good thing that other regions are promoting rosé, because it will help rosé to grow quicker. In France, it's the second color. The number one is red, of course, with around 40% of the consumption, but 30% is rosé now, and 20% is white. So
that's interesting.
I think that
consumption is a lot.
Yeah, I think that we can grow more in many markets.
Because it's also important, I think, and I think even with rosé, I'm stumbling today. I don't know why, but even with a rosé, which you're admitting, so to speak, that it's not complicated. It's a party wine. But they have to have complexity to be interesting. We have to want to drink them again.
Yeah.
And it takes years and years and years and years of trying your different methods, how you're going to graft the grapes, how we're going to pick this year. All those things are education for the next vintage. And all the new parts of the world aren't going to have that education to fall back on, that experience. And I think that's an important piece of it.
We need to work on no pressing. I think that if you what is very different and for Provence and for Minuti is to not to press, is to use gravity and to have only free run juice to avoid the skin contact and the transfer of the tannins from the skin. And what you see in other regions is that they press one time, two times to get more juice. And this is probably one of the main difference.
Does it matter in the rosé farms, the yield of tons per acre? Or tons per hectare?
For Provence, it's 60 hectoliters per hectares.
And it's important. That's an important thing to manage.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Even
because if you have higher yields, you will have probably less quality.
Yes.
Because you will tire the vineyards, as we say in France.
You said it was two brothers,
Jean-Etienne and François. It's the current owner. They are the third generation because we have been created by their grandparents in 1936.
Wow.
It's Gabriel who bought 17 hectares of vines in Gassin, in a small location called Minuti. So the name of the wine is coming from the place where the first vines were located.
So it's
and
François,
Jean-Etienne and Marie-Aline are the two brothers and sisters in charge of the vineyard. And even now, Jean-Etienne's daughter, one of her daughter, just came as a marketing manager, and she's the fourth generation.
Wow.
So, we are the.
Is that is fourth generations in Provence a lot, or is it sort of young?
No. I think we are one of the only family to have the fourth generation now.
I wonder with the advent of Mirabelle and Whispering Angel and these popular brands, has that changed the way you see things out there? The volume has changed? People are more aware of it? Does it frustrate you to see those brands when I mean, I'll be honest, these are very complex, interesting rosés. If I'm a red wine drinker, I'd be interested to taste these wines because they have such complexity.
No, but they arrived 10 to 15 years ago, at the beginning of the new trend of rosé, and so they brought awareness, they brought more light on Provence, and also perhaps they are the reason for the price increase also.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good thing, right?
Because they buy lots of grapes. But I think it's positive. We are different from them because we are coming from the little rosé, so more than 85 years ago, and we have been always working the soil to improve quality, the process to improve quality, and we created this concept of very pale salmon rosé, very expressive, light, fresh, crispy, but at the same time aromatic, and we are very proud of that. Now you have more marketing and I would say stars, rosé of the stars. You have lots of people coming.
Rosé of the stars.
Yes, coming to buy some estates in Provence. The last one was Georges Clooney. He just
got one too now.
He just bought a small winery in Provence. I'm not sure he will produce wine, but there are vineyards on that. And Tony Parker, he's French, but just came in the shareholding of Mascaron also. So you have lots of people interested in rosé.
You know, it's frustrating to me. After, you know, and I wasn't always like this. That I spent so much time maybe doing this that I've decided on the value of a glass of wine other than just the alcohol. That we in the case of rosé, we're going to share it. We're going to feel good about it. We're going to be celebrating the day because it's for the afternoon celebrations. You know, the cool wine. But it's also got in that being a place for rosé. There's places for Bordeaux. There's places for Burgundy. There's places for a complex expression of the soil, a complex expression of the winemaking. And when I see brands that take over the market, like in our case, let's say red wines, this thing called 19 Crimes. That's what everybody sees at the market. That's what they buy. It's cheap. It's sweet. And everybody drinks it, and it frustrates me because we taste so many interesting things. Let's just take, you know, the famous Moscato that's out here in America. I won't even bring up the name because he's my friend, but I have much better Moscato coming from Italian importers than what everybody's buying, and that frustrates me as a wine person. And I just wondered if that was, you know, an issue for the industry. But I think you're right. I think it has to do with people becoming more aware, and then they'll find other things to taste and find the complexity of minuti, and they'll gravitate toward it. So that leads me to this. So, you know, the old world of France, of Italy, any part of the world that makes wine over the centuries, and France in particular, has protected regions not only with wine, but with butter, cheese. So, and in Bordeaux now having to test other grapes because of climate change. But the Provence doesn't have that problem, right? You can grow whatever you want whenever you want to.
Not really. The appellation is limited in size, and for instance, we produce 90% of our wine are rosé, but we have also white and red, and we use Sauvignon Blanc in one of our whites, in Blanc and Or, which is not recognized by the appellation. So our Blanc and Or is Vin de Pays du Var.
I see.
It's not AOP Côte de Provence. So you can't plant. You have some. The main varietal is Grenache, Cinsault, Thibourin, Syrah, Rolle, of course, but Sémillon, Sauvignon, Viognier. You can't plant it to have the AOC, the appellation recognition.
Okay, I didn't know that. So you would have to call that Vin de France, or what was it?
Vin de Pays.
Vin de Pays.
Vin de Pays du Var.
From the Languedoc. Okay, it's interesting because there's wines coming out of Carcassonne, you know, Cabernet Franc. Yeah. It's like, when did this happen? Because I never tasted them before. Actually, it was pretty good. Because I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Languedoc in general was kind of known for its bulk, large quantities of wine, not that sophisticated, relatively simple, and that's changing a little bit.
Yeah. The quality of the wine in France is improving. In every region, improving a lot.
Yeah,
because you consume less but better. So this is the big trend.
It's kind of interesting for me because we see these things. I see my Puglia, Italy. You know, that's changing. When I started in the industry, it was, you know, just heavy-duty stuff that you couldn't drink, and now it's being more refined. Now we're talking about the Languedoc producing more things. Is there a conversation in the Languedoc or in the Provence with co-ops versus estates, like Minuti's an estate? Yeah. Are there large co-ops that are making large quantities of rosé?
We buy some grapes to co-op outside to produce M. So I will say that of course when you have your own vineyards, you can control better the quality, but you can also buy very qualitative grapes that you will vinify yourself. And because you are a big brand and you can't own 100% of the volume that you are producing. So I think that quality is not only linked to estate.
No, I suppose not. I mean, I'm just wondering because much of Burgundy, really until recent times, Bordeaux as well, was mostly negociants.
Yeah.
And they would buy and sell the juice and bottle it under their brands.
Yeah.
And that sort of changed. But I just wondered if in the rosé world, this was competition. You said something earlier that I didn't know about. And you said in 1955, I read this actually, Château Minuti was one of the 23 properties to be distinguished as a classified growth of the Côte de Provence. What does that mean? What did they do? I don't remember them, the classification of 1955. We know the classification of 1855, but not 1955.
For us, it was 1955, but you will see that it's not on our bottle, on our label, because not all now, we expand a bit more the vineyard, and we have 160 hectares, and not all the vineyard are part of this classification. It has no real meaning in Provence, to be honest, compared to Bordeaux, and we don't use it. It was in this time they try to distinguish, to underline the quality of the soil of certain winery, but it has not been used and expanded from this time, not really, and we don't use it anymore.
Were there other levels? Deuxième, troisième, quatrième?
No,
just
it was
strictly
just, and now they are 18. Because
18.
5 of them have disappeared.
Oh.
So they are 18 now.
So it's got less.
Yeah.
Just imagine that with Bordeaux. If it got less, that'd be impossible, right? Well, it's just interesting because Burgundy's got the Grand Cru and the Premier Cru, and then the Bordeaux classification, which I love asking Bordeaux winemakers. Do you think that other people belong in better accolades, or just because Napoleon III decided to do this for the Paris Affair? We're stuck with it. But maybe it's marketing, maybe it isn't. But wine. There's something about. Let's go on that subject just for a minute. People ask me all the time: is a Chateau Lafite, that's $1,000 a bottle, 10 times better than $100 bottle of wine, and is it 50 times better than And I'm like, yeah, that'd be hard to argue all the time, except that when you pour a Chateau Lafite or Baron Philippe de Rothschild, you're pouring that, and that means something.
Yeah,
there's a pedigree to that, right? There's a level that comes with that. I'm pouring this. So this is, and so the taste profile may or may not be arguably that much, or that anybody could tell. But
I agree.
You're pouring it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So tell me about the love of the wine for the two brothers and the sister. What brought them to the Chateau Minuti, and what was this passion about? I mean, the original family in 1936.
In 1936, Gabriel wanted to acquire a winery to do a very qualitative red, and the 17 hectares were mainly planted in Syrah. Yeah. And he understood very quickly that he had to fight against the big appellation, the big region, Bordeaux and Burgundy. And from time to time, he decided to move a bit the production to rosé, because the soil and the terroir was a very good one to do rosé. And then after that, the Jean-Étienne and François parents decided to continue the story of the grandfather, and it was also what wanted to do François and Jean-Étienne. It's to perpetuate the legacy of the family, and because they are born there, they are still living there, and they are very family oriented. We have lots of family working at Minuti, The winemaker for M is the husband of our export assistant.
Oh, I see.
You have our financial director. His brother is working in the vineyards. So it's very very family oriented, and they are proud of their terroir. They are proud of their winery, and they want to perpetuate this legacy. And at the beginning, they were not thinking about exporting in 100 countries, more than 100 countries, and being one of the leader of the Provence Rosé in the world. But being very consistent in the time, doing very qualitative wines, and keeping to be simple and authentic brought them to this success, I think.
Was it? You think it always was going to be that way for them? Because I interviewed a lot of winemakers or family-run wineries, particularly from France, where the sibling or the son or the daughter goes off and gets a degree and becomes a lawyer, or becomes a doctor, even studies biology, and then somehow they come back to the winery. There's something about the lifestyle.
I think that there is something in their blood. It's not. It's a natural product. Wine is wine. I think wine is a story of men and women, and there is a special relation between owners and their terroirs and their estates.
You know, tonight I have a dinner at our house, 110 people, and yeah, I know. It's just a small gathering of friends. So
I hope we will start with Minuti. Huh?
Yeah, I think we should actually. I'll be honest. I don't have rosé on the menu, but I think I'm going to do that.
We should start with rosé.
Yes, we should. But it's interesting because you said being about family and friends and sharing, and I had to think about what am I going to pour. It's not just grab something off the shelf. I have to think about who's joining us. Yeah. They're going to look at the label. They're going to wonder what it is. They're going to taste it. They're going to have a question in their mind. And it's to start the conversation. It's to toast this glass and then go, wait a minute, what was that? And I think that's so important for the culture of wine compared to beer, compared to Scotch or bourbon or even French, Scotch, which I think is very good. But there's something unique about the glass of wine that makes us think and talk about it. So what did they task you with when you started with them in 2017? They said, Sebastien, we want you to go to 100 countries?
Yeah.
That was it, huh?
Yeah. Because we started by south of France, then Paris, and then we followed our consumer, the people coming to Saint-Tropez to visit us. So it was mainly European people.
Yeah.
And then people were going to the Caribbean islands during winter. So they wanted to find again Minuti. So we listed Minuti there. And for US, it has been a bit longer. So because we introduced first Minuti 12, 13 years ago. So yes, the export strategy has been in place very recently because we were mainly selling in France and Europe.
Mm-hmm. Well, with the Saint-Tropez being the source of, when we were there that one time, we were there early actually. It was just before the season. It was late May, and there were already cruise ships. And I read in one of the articles about Minuti that you were in quite many of the famed hotels and restaurants in Saint-Tropez. So
we are in 80 or 90% of all the nice and fancy place of Saint-Tropez and globally the French Riviera. Our window is the French Riviera. And we sell 1.5 million bottles from Monaco to Saint-Tropez.
Really?
It's 2 hours drive. So we are very lucky because lots of people are coming from all over the planet to visit this region and to attend to Cannes Film Festival, to the Grand Prix of Monaco, and so on. And so it's we are the wine of this region, and it helped us to export and to create this image and also the culture, our DNA, which is to with Minuti we try to bring the French Riviera to your table.
So all the way up to Monaco. And then you got the Cannes Film Festival. This is first, right? The string of events that happened in France that started on the Riviera, which is the Cannes Film Festival. Then it goes to Monaco, and then Roland Garros, the tennis tournament.
Roland Garros is in June. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right after all that.
We are also sold at Roland Garros.
I don't want to keep it too much longer because we promised you 45 minutes, but I do want to talk to you about this organic biodynamic wine movement. And I have a question, of course. We talked about that, but we were talking off camera a little bit about the use of copper, which is a Bordelaise created a thing to help preserve grapes. The organic biodynamic movement is it alive and well in the Provence? And
yes. We are not using any pesticide or herbicide. We are working mechanically the soil. We have larger row to do that. So we are sustainable, and we are HEV3. Which is a high level of quality and environment protection recognition. But we are not organic because we don't use copper, because we don't want to treat the vines with copper, which will go deeply in the soil and will be back in the wines. So we have 20 hectares which will be converted in organic process. It's not easy to do that with 160 hectares, but we are really in this mindset of course, to protect the environment and to treat the less the vines, and hopefully. I would say the climate, the weather is I would say less aggressive than in Bordeaux or Burgundy, and we need to treat less. So we can have some mildew attack, but it's less the case than in other regions.
Has climate change affected the Saint-Tropez?
Yeah, of course. The climate change is mainly the dry.
It's drier.
François used to say, because he has been managing the vineyards for more than 30 years, in 30 years' time, we gain, I don't know if it's the right word, we gain nearly 1 month for the harvest. The harvest in the 90s were mid-September. Now it's mid-August. And this year, which is 1 month, and this year, which is even drier, we will start probably 10th of August.
Wow, that's interesting.
So there is
There's definitely a movement, and it's not a political show, so we're not going to talk about why that happened. But I want to dovetail off of the organic biodynamic conversation because I think it's important, and I see it a lot here. In some of the stuff tastes like kombucha because it's so raw. And I don't think that's a pleasurable thing to do for the wine world. But I do believe Chateau like Minuti and properly made wine does what they can anyway, because they don't want to contaminate their soil. They don't want to deaden the soil. We all know that that's what ends up happening with too many pesticides and herbicides. So you just do the best you can with what you have, and you want to make sure your wine tastes as good as it can and represents what it's supposed to be. I mean, it just seems like a natural thing, rather than to say I'm going to put a certification on the back for organic or biodynamic. If a lot of wineries, particularly in France, will say, "Look, my kids are playing in that vineyard. I don't want pesticides and herbicides on their hands." Right? That makes sense. In the biodynamic movement, that's interesting. There's the book right there. I think it's got some interesting things to talk about. The humanism of it all. It's interesting, but is it necessary? A lot of times I think it's just marketing. I mean, and I do get a lot of wineries that are organic that don't even talk about it. They just are.
Yeah. We will not
they just do
use the fact that we are organic for one cuvée.
Yeah.
It's just a philosophy.
It's just the way it is.
We need to be the more protective for the environment.
Okay, I'm going to get you out of here, but I have to ask you a question. Dr. Murray, French doctor, practicing medical doctor, and homeopathic, herbs and things. And he wrote this book in 1974. Wine is the best medicine. It's got all the ailments throughout the book that you could have a problem with, and how wine will help you. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to tell you that the cure for one of these three ailments is rosé. You have to pick which one.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
So is it allergies, arteriosclerosis, or diarrhea?
Uh,
Which one? Which one of those will help you? If you have one of those, which one of those will rosé help?
number 2.
Well, you're right. I can't even say arteriosclerosis, and here's why. And I have to ask you the dosage, because it's a doctor, right? He has to give you a dosage. So the reason that rosé works is because rosé from the Provence are at the same time a diuretic and an antitoxic.
Yeah.
So you can take that back to the gang over there and
yeah.
tell them. But how much should you drink? How much Provence wine should I have if I have arteriosclerosis?
One bottle a week, a
One-
day.
Well, that's pretty close. 2 glasses with meals, which would be around 6 bottles.
6 glasses.
And
one
that's 6
bottle.
glasses,
Yeah.
one bottle. You should have written the book.
No, I promise you.
Sebastien, it's been a great pleasure having you here. I appreciate you taking the time, just coming off the plane and having a chat with us, talk about